Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by. Woo! I'm Rusty. Welcome to Talking Giants player profiles and projections. I'm your host Bobby Skinner here with my co-host Justin Pennick. We're brought to you by Captain Morgan today, and today we're looking at Drew Lock and Dane Belton. Usually we go straight into it for player profile projections, Justin, but this is my first episode in Florida. And you know what? I might have to be a little more sympathetic for DJ. I'm rusty. I'm not used to being behind this desk, even though we've been doing it, getting reps in all month.
It's been a nice long month together, Bobby Skinner, and now you're back in the great state of Florida. And I mean, even Drew Lock looked a little rusty against the Detroit Lions too. And we're going to talk all about him. And then we have Dane Belton on the back end of the episode too. Did you design this with the two players with the first name that starts with a D? Did you design that one?
No, I think I designed it as this is the last week before cutdown days. And, next week I think is like the Daniel Jones week, the Dexter Lawrence week. And I was like, you know what? People might be a little PPP'd out. This is going to be an exciting week. But okay. we're gonna start.
Get ready for an exciting week.
Yeah, we're gonna start with Drew Lock. 27 years old, 6'4", 228 pounds, 2019 second round pick out of Mizzou. And it's year 6 for Drew Lock, and he joins his third team after being traded from the Denver Broncos to the Seattle Seahawks, where he competed for Geno Smith to be the starter, ended up being the backup. Giants signed him to a 1-year, $5 million, which was essentially all fully guaranteed to be the Giants' backup. When you watch Lock, there's some fun in there, Justin, and we'll get into it. And I watched the film of his 2 games where he's played for the Seahawks over the last 2 years, and you do see improvements from Denver. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of like fun. It's a little bit of fun stuff, and like mixed with a mostly not very good, if that makes any sense.
No, it does make sense, Bobby. This was the PPP that I've tried the longest and the hardest to be more positive on when it comes to stats, and it's very hard with Drew Lock. And we're kind of back in the phase, and we're back in the stance of backup quarterback of, it's not one of the best. It's also not one of the worst. I'm not going to sit here and say Drew Lock is one of the worst backup quarterbacks in the NFL. But at the same time, Drew Lock is a backup quarterback. He is a backup quarterback for a reason. And usually when these guys are backups, they don't have good numbers and they don't have good things supporting them coming behind them. And that's kind of the case with Drew Lock.
Yeah, it's my argument has always been is like there's really no such thing as a good backup QB in the NFL. He's good in the backup definition, but just quarterback, versus the NFL, well, you're the 33rd guy at best. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rules, but that's like mostly what you get. But let's talk about Drew Lock and who he is. Right, he is someone who likes to push the ball down the field. He does have a pretty decent arm to push it. And he started 2 games last year and went and 1-1 versus the 49ers and the Eagles. And he had that that throw to JSN versus the Eagles and on Monday Night Football fourth quarter. Like that's the fun stuff of Drew Lock. And in those 2 games, he completed 63% of his passes, had a little less than 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So, like I said, he's gotten better since Denver, and still wanting to push the ball down the field. But there's still, the quick game is still a bit of an issue. Right, he's kind of late reading the conflict player a lot of times, and it leads to missed throws or yak taken away. But you see the aggression, right? When there's a hole shot or a throw to be made down the field, he's going to pull the trigger on it, right? If he's got a one-on-one with his alert route on one side of the field, he has no fear of saying, you know what, that's the throw I'm going to get to. Forget the progression, I'm throwing to the alert. So you see like some big boy stuff, but just the down in, down out stuff is not great for Lock.
Right. I think that's his best quality, is that he wants to and he will throw the damn ball deep. That 100%. And in an offense,
which is a good fit for Dable.
Which is a good fit for Brian Dable, and it's and it's an interesting dichotomy to the starter in Daniel Jones, right? But one thing that I do find that Drew Lock does do, and you saw it a little bit in the Detroit Lions preseason game, I think he puts the ball in harm's way way, way too much. And it's with him throwing the ball, where I think he actually does a really good job of limiting sacks and limiting negative plays in that regard. He's never been a guy that's taken way too many sacks, despite I don't think he's a great mover. Like, I don't consider Drew, I think he probably can move and he can run a little bit, but I don't consider him to be a great mover or a great like manipulator of the pocket, but he does reduce the sacks and he gets rid of the ball. But the only thing is that I do think he is very willing to put the ball in harm's way. So you have an aggressive quarterback that wants to stretch the ball down the field. He'll even want to throw it between the 10 to 19 yard range too. You know, during his time with Denver, he had a almost pretty even split between throwing it towards the intermediate part of the field and the deep part of the field. But I do think that comes at a cost sometimes with putting the ball in harm's way and having some bad decisions of throwing to the opposite jersey color.
Yeah, I mean, his 1 year of starting was, his second year in Denver, and it was pretty reckless with our good old friend Pat Shurmur. And he just had a bad concept of the offense. He didn't have a great grasp of what they were trying to do. And he said, when in doubt, I'm throwing it deep. And he led the NFL in average depth of target that year, led the NFL in interceptions that year. Now, he also dealt with, that was like the Jerry Jeudy drop rate. The only two guys who had a higher drop rate than him that year was Carson Wentz and Daniel Jones. And it's crazy when okay, well, some of this stuff will be better when you look at 2023, right? Even in a limited sample size, and it wasn't, right? So, his 1 year starting in 2020, he was second in deep throw rate, but also 36 of 39 in deep throw completion rate. So, hey, he's throwing it down the field a lot. Not successfully. Last year, I went and looked at it. He was a fifth in rate for 20-plus yard throws. Obviously, a smaller sample size, so I had to...
2 games, right?
Yeah. But he was 3 for 11, so he was 42nd in completion percentage for it. And it wasn't just completion. I mean, he threw 3 interceptions, right? He had the second least dropbacks out of the 49 QBs that, filled in on there. And he had the 12th most interceptions on those plays. But he also had 2 touchdowns, right? So in 2 games, he had 3 completions, 2 touchdowns. So it's so much give and take. And
it's the Drew Lock experience.
And it's too much take. And here's my biggest worry this year for the New York Giants, because he's only on a 1-year deal, is that he did have a better grasp of the quick game and stuff in Seattle. Much better grasp of that than he did in Denver. Still wasn't really that good at it, but there's just two different players. I worry that with 1 year being with the Giants, is he going to have that same grasp of that kind of stuff where in Seattle he got a full year of just sitting behind Geno Smith?
Reword that worry for me.
He's learning the offense. And Drew Lock has not picked up offenses very quickly.
Okay. So you're worried about...
in Seattle, he had a better grasp of the quick game, but he didn't play a game for them until his, over halfway through his second year there. Where now, if say Daniel Jones gets injured, he's in week 3, he just doesn't have the same amount of time in that offense that he had in Seattle.
He only had 1 year in Seattle. It was last year, Bobby.
No, he had 2 years. He just didn't play the year before.
Oh, he didn't play? Oh, yeah. Duh. I see
that's the point I'm making.
A whole missing gap in his Pro Football Reference page in 2022 because he didn't play, didn't register a snap. Okay, yeah. Okay, sure. That makes sense. I mean, even, again, from the preseason game, Drew Lock did not look comfortable and not very good reads and things like that when there should have been better reads. So, yeah, it's a legit point. It's a legit point 100%.
And there's just too much boneheadedness, right? Even we don't try to talk about preseason too much or training camp in this. But in training camp, it's just oh my gosh, there's just no grasp of getting the ball out on time. And the interception in the preseason game was really bad.
Yeah.
That was an awful read where you just it was a dagger concept, which we talk about a lot on here, where you have the slot receivers just running a vertical, clearing out space, the outside receivers running a 15-yard dig or in, and then you have something in the flats, and he just stares down Isaiah Hodgins on it. The safety's just sitting there waiting for it because it was a pre-snap safety rotation, and he just throws it in there because he never even checks to see what the safety's doing. That's the type of worry you have with Drew Lock, where I hate to be so negative on this because it's a backup QB, and my whole phrase is backup there's no such thing as a backup QB, but it is a pretty big deficit or downgrade from Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, it is. I mean, I even think
like the only thing he has on Tyrod Taylor is health, and right now he's actually injured.
You know, and I actually think that Tyrod Taylor throws a better deep ball. Like we had the critiques of Tyrod Taylor, you know, when he came into the Giants that, oh, he doesn't do it, he doesn't want to do it, and it checks it down a little bit too much. But then you finally saw it, and I think Tyrod Taylor had one of the best big throw rates in the, you know, big time throw rates in the National Football League last year on that limited sample size. And like I think Drew Lock has a willingness to do it, but I think Tyrod Taylor is a better thrower of the deep ball than Drew Lock is.
Yeah. It's honestly it's the short accuracy where Taylor Lock might have an advantage. Where Tyrod,
right?
For all the good, you remember like how many just misses he would have in the quick game.
Yeah, I will say Drew Lock does have a very quick release. Like he gets that ball back there. He doesn't necessarily need to have his feet fully planted. He can kind of release the ball from different sort of pseudo arm slots. So, you know, in the quick game, if that's really where they want to lean into, you know, he can get rid of that ball quick, and that could be an area that they can stay alive. Just make good choices with the football.
What do you think? We'll finish with this. Daniel Jones gets injured. What are we getting out of Drew Lock on a 4-game stretch?
It depends what 4-game stretch we're talking about with this schedule, Bobby Skinner. Because the Giants' schedule does go in waves.
I think we're going to get a lot of deep throws and a good amount of interceptions and some Brian Dable cussing them out.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? I think it will look similar to what we saw with Tommy DeVito last year. I do think it will, except there won't be as many sacks. There won't be as many sacks.
That'll be like the major difference right there.
Yeah. There will be, like, DeVito was willing to take those deep shots. I think there will be deeper shots because I think Locke just has a better arm than Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, DeVito couldn't throw that deep post.
But I think
where Locke loves throwing that deep post.
I think it'll feel similar-ish to that. And now that I'm starting to say that, it will be much better than what we saw with DeVito because, like I said, I do not think Drew Lock will take as many sacks as Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, I mean, that was like basically DeVito's biggest issue was the amount of sacks that he would take. All right, Justin, why don't you talk to us about something?
I'll talk to you about something, and I'll talk to you about Captain Morgan.
Imagine me throwing a bottle of Captain Morgan in the background.
Oh, I don't need to imagine it. I'm glad you're not throwing glass around my head. But this PPP is brought to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum sponsor of the NFL. I'm also going to plug this. We have a fantasy football draft in a couple weeks at the John Boy Media office, and Captain Morgan is sponsoring it. I would like all the people in the world to be in that live stream watching it happen. It's the day before the NFL season kicks off, that Wednesday, because the more people that are in it, the more Captain Morgan will like us. And when life gets bland, try Captain Morgan Original Spiced Rum. It's delicious and crisp and perfect for game day with friends. Spice it up. That'll be on the JM Football channel. Visit CaptainMorgan.com to find Captain near you. Please drink responsibly. Captain Morgan Original Spiced Rum, 35% alcohol by volume. Captain Morgan Rum Company in New York, New York. You'll be glad you did. Thank you to Captain Morgan for sponsoring our entire summer. It made it great. It made it crisp. And it spiced it up a little bit.
Spicy. You'll be glad you did. All right, Justin, let's talk about Dane Belton, 6'1", 205-pound safety. Was a 4th-round pick in 2022 out of Iowa at 25 years old. Last year, only started 2 games, had 33 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, 3 tackles for a loss. Started 5 games as a rookie, where he led them in interceptions with 2, and fumble recoveries with 2. He's gotten his hands on the football as a pro in the NFL. He right now is in a battle with Tyler Newman to be the starting safety, but I ultimately hope and think he belongs as the 3rd safety, which is probably his NFL role anyways.
Yeah, Dane Belton last year played in 39% of the, in 2022 he played in 39% of the snaps he was eligible for, and then it reduced down to 26% in 2023. I mean, he's a turnover merchant, and I know that's the fun line that people like to go to about Dane Belton, and it kind of is true, whether it's a fumble recovery, forced fumble, interception, and dude's out there and he kind of just forces these turnovers. I do think he finished the year much better than he started. He got a little bit more consistent playing time, and he got some like full starts to end the year, like against the Eagles, against the Rams, where he had the 2 interception game. But ultimately, Bobby, we're in year 3 of Dane Belton, and I'm still saying the same thing that I said on our 2022 draft recap video. I'm still having a hard time figuring out what Dane Belton does well, or like what his role is fully going to be.
Interceptions, bro.
As an NFL player. Besides, okay, just interceptions, but he's on the field 26% of the time last year. How do we increase that a little bit? How do we find more of a full-time role? Like I think, even on that draft recap, Bobby, one of the things that we expected is, hey, let's have Dane Belton turn into this Julian Love player. And I still think he's even far away from that jack of all trades, master of none type of guy.
Yeah, even, pre Julian Love over the last 2 years, like we would take that from Belton, and I don't think he is that. Yeah, he's an example of why you don't just look at interceptions when judging DBs. Because, his 2 interceptions last year were just bad overthrow. Like, you're right place, right time, but you're not in, like, good position in those when Matthew Stafford just tries to no-look shit and overthrows it, right? That's just, like, that. You don't get credit for that. The interception he had his rookie year versus the Texans was good, but that was right before a play where he got beat for a touchdown. And then, the other one was against the Eagles his rookie year where Jalen Hurts just inexplicably just throws the ball up in the red zone. Like, I was like, what the hell are you doing? But I think what he is, Justin, is versatile, right? He's, lines up deep, nickel, and in the box, his box percentage, last year 45%, rookie year 44%. Deep percentage, last year 40%, rookie year 35%, and then at nickel or wide, 15% last year, 21% his rookie year. He's a decent athlete for the safety spot, not great. And I think he is someone who you can, even though I don't know if that's going to have a huge role on this team, like kind of your big nickel type safety. The only reason why I don't love him in that role, though, is I don't think he's great against the run, right? Like, our talking point for Dane Belton, like you said, to like get to what we want out of him, which is not like, we don't have this, he's got to be a starting safety, but to be like a third safety we're proud of is getting better against the run, and that just hasn't happened. Like, he's not aggressive in the box really, or from deep, and takes bad angles sometimes, and he was a really bad tackler last year, right? Like, he had the 6th highest
missed tackle rate, yeah.
The 6th highest missed tackle rate out of 101 safeties in 2023. So that's where you get frustrated, but he is someone like you could put on a tight end in man coverage and feel okay against it. You can ask him to do his zone coverage duties and feel okay, but he's just, like you said, he doesn't give you this advantage anywhere. But if he took a step forward as a run defender, which is something that, like, I feel like is a reasonable ask out of him, then he's a third safety you can feel proud of. Where right now he's just a third safety.
Right, and we see flashes, Bobby. There was even 3 tackles for loss last year. His pressure rate as a blitzer, while extremely limited, was really good too. I don't think Shane Bowen is going to ask him to do the same things that Wink Martindale asked his safeties to do. But the times that we saw him kind of in the box and involved in stuff, especially in the backfield, it was on those blitzes. Now, I do want to give Belton credit here, where it's tough to evaluate, deep safeties. Like, I'll put my hand up. I'm not watching to see what a deep safety's doing and their responsibility and how they cover, a quarter of the field, half the field, or the entire field. Especially the NFL broadcast on Sundays doesn't even give you an opportunity to watch that because they're not even on the freaking screen. But we've seen numerous times where Belton has been in the box or closer to the line of scrimmage. This is a guy that I think he's a relatively smart player. I don't think he's fooled much by misdirection. Nope. He sniffed out screens pretty well. We saw his rookie year almost get an interception on Geno Smith. What would have been the most impressive interception of his career. Almost get an interception on Geno Smith on a 3rd down, baiting Geno Smith into thinking that you had a receiver that's open. So the times that we kind of do see him, and everything is limited, the times that we do see him kind of in the box in coverage, it's fun. It's good. You mentioned that, he could cover, man coverage. There was this one play where I forget who was against, but again, like a misdirection play where you have all these linemen going left, but then you have a receiver that's coming across on the right and he's not falling for it. He's following his guy across the formation. So Belton as a number 3 safety on this team and maybe even as a spot starter, I'm taking that, but I still feel like we could see some opportunities for growth from him.
Absolutely. All right. That's a player. Yeah. You don't
I
have
have a stat.
else, do you?
I have a stat.
Stat. Hit us with the stat.
New stat. I don't know what it means. I just found it. I just accessed
God. No.
I just accessed the NFL Pro. The NFL Pro stuff. From NFL Premium. Minus 2.1% catch rate over expected allowed.
I can't do catch rate over expectation.
And minus 10.2 coverage EPA when targeted, according to NFL Next Gen. Do I fully know what it means yet? Do I fully know how that stacks up against everybody in the NFL? No, it's because I just discovered that this stat in this database yesterday. But you want to know what negative is better than? Positive. And Dane Belton, negative minus 2.1% catch rate over expected allowed. Boom.
We're gonna have to do like a Zoom call with somebody, and it's like, all right, explain this stat and how it's built, and then we get a list of like can use, can't use, because I have no idea what any of that means. All right, let's appreciate you guys for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Until then, let's go Big Blue.